Hi, my name's Graham Atwell. I made this short video for the PLE strand at the Team 21 conference. I hope it sparks off some discussion and reflection from us, as both learners and teachers. Let's start with the troubled definition of what a PLE is. For me, the essential idea is agency, that learners control their own learning environment on and offline. And despite the dying down of the hype over PLEs, that idea is still important for many people. Key also, I think, is the idea that PLEs are not just another piece of shiny educational technology. They're about how we learn and use technology to support learning. But of course, we live in a contested world of what education is and what it should be. Yesterday, I finished reading Audrey Water's brilliant book on teaching machines. Two things jump out. EdTech's not a new thing. The history of teaching machines goes back to at least the 1920s, and even then it was linked to the idea that education is failing and that what was needed was standardization, which was leading to managerialism, commodification, and privatization. Teaching machines, in the past and even more so today, were dominated by technological determinism and a pedagogy of behaviorism, with students seen as customers and consumers. I think in the early days of PLEs, we were all a bit naive. We saw EdTech, and especially Web 2.0 and social networks, as a good thing, as modernising education, and ignored the issues of ownership, power, and control. Also, we underestimated the challenge for learners, especially in terms of digital competence and of metacognition, of reflection on learning. But education is contested, and especially the future. We've also seen the rise of MOOCs, which for all the criticisms have opened up education to self-learning, even if most participants are already privileged in terms of their past education. And perhaps more importantly, we've seen the spread of open educational resources and of open education, motivated by a belief that learners want to exercise agency in their studies. These contradictions are extended. The recent emphasis on data through learning analytics both offers control to institutions and wants more standardization, but on the other hand, the possibilities for learners to be empowered to reflect on their own learning. As Pardo and Siemens have said, learning analytics is a moral practice and needs to focus on understanding instead of measuring. And I think that understanding could and should be designed for students understanding their own learning. PLEs could be enriched through learners being exposed to their own and others' learning processes and outcomes, potentially allowing for better awareness and tracing of learning, sharing experiences and scaling informal learning practices. This can assist learners in monitoring and understanding their own activities and interactions, and participation in individual and collaborative learning processes, and help them in reflecting on learning. I want to draw attention to the misunderstandings between personalisation and PLEs. The increasing interest in personalisation, incidentally, the main claim for the use of teaching machines in the past in America was adaptive learning or intelligent tutor systems, where AI is determining the learning activities for the student, including delivery and providing feedback. That's not the idea of a PLE. Let's quickly sum up. PLE is a social pedagogic approach to using technology for teaching and learning. And in this, the agency is key. And perhaps we've tended to ignore the role of teachers in PLEs. As Jordi Adele recently tweeted, teaching has become increasingly redefined as a technical operation aimed at the effective production of measurable learning outcomes. Such a notion of teaching is not just problematic in terms of the very practice of teaching, but it's also undermined teacher agency, teacher identity, and teacher professionalism, individually and collective. Yet it's that agency, identification, and professionalism which can support learners in creating and maintaining their PLEs. I'd like to finish by drawing attention to work by Neil Selwyn. He says challenging questions for educational technology in the 2020s include: how might alternative approaches to EdTech be established that do not presume the continuation of dominant big tech industry, global capitalist modes of production, the global middle class, or other facets of neoliberal hegemony? His idea of EdTech within limits would foreground the need to plan future educational technology use with a primary aim on coping with finiteness, driven by the understanding that technology uses precious resources and generates its own carbon footprint, and seek to re-establish technology use in education as a shared and communal activity. I suggest this could provide a point of reference for us to rethink personal learning environments, encompassing the ideas of equity and encompassing both radical pedagogies and the perspectives of previously marginalised interests and non-powerful groups. Thank you for listening.